So, I'm Robert West. I'm author of the 5-Star Plan. I'm still getting used to saying that. To let you know what I'm going to cover and how passionate I am about it, you have to know a little bit about my family. I'm a 4th generation Texan. That's like being born at home and thinking you hit a run, right? And I always welcome the people that chose to be Texans, because I was born here. I didn't have a choice. So anyone in the room that wasn't born here but got here as fast as you could, from the bottom of my heart, welcome home. My grandfather, at the age of 14, ran away from home halfway through World War I. He joined the army. He fought in France for 2 years before they figured out how old he was, and they sent him home. When he got back, he found out they'd passed prohibition. Can you imagine fighting for 2 years for freedom and coming back to find less of it than when you left? So he had to go to the reservation to drink, and while he was down there and he got in a poker game, he won my grandmother in a poker game. Hey, in the 1920s, they still rode horses, they still won squaws and poker games, but they stayed married for the rest of their life. They had 5 kids. My father, his brothers, and his sister were called half-breed to their face on almost a daily basis. This was the 20s and 30s and 40s. Things have gotten better. When my father fought in World War II and came home, they had to move to Corpus Christi to get married because my father was a half-breed and my mom was white. I'm not saying Caucasian, I'm saying like white. So, but when he got home, one of the things he wanted to do with that money that he saved over those years was to build his parents a house. But while he was gone, they passed this thing that said he had to buy a permit to do that. A permission slip from the state of Texas to build a house with his own hands, with his own money, for his parents, on land that had been paid for decades. Less freedom than when he left. I had an older brother off the coast of Korea. I had an older brother that won a Purple Heart in the 70s. Me and my little brother served in the Gulf. And when my little brother came home, went back to that land and wanted to build a house for his new family, you couldn't get a permit anymore. You had to hire a contractor, or you had to pay $40,000 for a contractor's license. Less freedom than when he left. Both of my parents were very proud of us for what we did, and I'm very proud of my children. Both of my children enlisted in the service. But when my son got home from the Marines last year, he got home just in time for the lockdowns. So when Greg Abbott passed those mandates, I can't describe the level of betrayal I felt as a Texan. I know the Constitution. I read the Constitution for the state of Texas. And no part of that was allowed. Article 1 covers our Bill of Rights. The second one is you'll maintain a Republican form of government. One man writing the law, enforcing the law, and telling judges how to rule on the law is not a Republican form of government. And there might be people that support Greg Abbott. But you can't do that and simultaneously support a limited, constitutional, Republican form of government. It's one or the other. Number 3 is equal protection under the law. If I tell you you're non-essential, you can't earn a living for your family, and I tell you that you can, it's not equal protection under the law. I'm a very boring person. I was a Boy Scout. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I've never done an illegal drug in my life. I've been married to the same woman for 30 years, and we've got 2.5 children because she's convinced I'm only half drunk. I have no tattoos, because why would I have a picture on my body I wouldn't be caught dead with hanging on my wall? So I'm boring. Okay, I was a youth group leader. I was a lay speaker. I'm as boring as you get. But listen very carefully. If your pursuit of happiness is to run a spit shine concession at an all-leather bar in Deep Ellum and that's what puts food on your table and a roof over your head, that, my friend, is an essential job, and neither me nor Greg Abbott or anybody else has the right to say no. There are 3 reasons in the Texas Constitution that the state can seize your property. Only 3 reasons. That's urban blight, that's for the use and enjoyment of the state or the people, or that's for another entity that has that right, like a school or a hospital. Disease is not one of those reasons. Greg Abbott violated the Constitution on that point. That same section says if the government takes, destroys, or damages property, they shall, ask any attorney, shall's a pretty strong legal word, they shall issue restitution prior to the taking. That was not done. Now, some people say that he didn't take a business because he just said you couldn't use it. Well, that's garbage, and they're lying, and they're bright enough to know they're lying. If I don't allow you to use your car, it's not your car anymore. If you're not allowed to use your house, it's not your house anymore. And if you're not allowed to operate your business that you own, it's not your business anymore. The other thing that happened is he facilitated closing down our churches. There's nobody that convinced me otherwise. When you say only essential businesses, and here's a couple of examples, and you don't include churches on those examples, then you close down those churches. You close down a place of faith and healing and hope in the middle of a pandemic full of death and despair. What did you think was going to happen? People were told to shut down for 2 weeks, they complied. People said it was going to take maybe a couple of months, they complied. 6 months goes by, well, we'll let you open your business when we get around to it. A lot of those people saw their income end. They had no church to attend, to ask, to turn to. They looked at their finances. And they said the only way my family can survive is if I don't. And they took a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Those deaths are on the hands of Greg Abbott. He violated our Constitution. It's there for a reason. Those people had bills. They had kids. And they had no income. And they had no one to turn to and no one to ask advice from. And that was all on one person's hands. And for that, I'll never forgive him. Now, there are other things he did. You don't put cowboys and beaches together, but when they wrote our Constitution, they said the state of Texas can never close our public beaches. They went even further. You can't block access to or egress from our public beaches, and Abbott closed our public beaches. You can't tell me the man can't read. Very clear. Number 29 is on our Bill of Rights is if any law is written that violates the Bill of Rights, it's null and void from the time it's written. It can't be enforced. It says it in black and white. If that's not enough, he claimed the right to spend $250 million, $250 million of our tax money for contact tracking. He didn't go through the legislature. He just spent it. And then after the session, but before the special session, he claimed another $250 million for the wall. And you might like the wall. I love the wall. You might hate contact tracking. But here's the deal. If a tyrant and a thief steals, it doesn't matter if he steals from you or for you, he's still a tyrant and he's still a thief. I started traveling Texas. So far, we've gotten 14 county GOPs to censure Greg Abbott. Counties that were on the fence, we filled empty precinct chairs, and then we got them to vote again, and it passed. I'm working across the state of Texas to fill more precinct chairs. About a third of them are empty. When I was overseas, I saw how they train baby elephants. If you've never seen it, they'll take a baby elephant and they'll chain it to a post away from the other elephants, and elephants are very social creatures. And those babies will scream and they'll cry and they'll yell and they'll strain and their leg will bleed, and they'll carry those scars on that leg for the rest of their life. But eventually they'll figure out they can't get away from that chain, and they'll lay down. And once they lay down, they're trained. And they will never challenge that stake again the rest of their life. I feel pretty bad for that baby elephant right now, right? That's us. They've told us we have a say every couple of years. We have to break that chain. We have to break that stick in the ground. We have to assert ourselves as full-grown elephants. We don't have to wait. People ask me all the time what you can do. Some people say, write your representative. Some people say, talk to him. Some say, go down to Austin. I'm telling you folks, backdated every offense that Greg Abbott did and made it law. And let me tell you something. There was only 4 Republicans in Austin, in our House, that voted against it. Only 4 deserve a job. This bill made Abbott a king without calling him a king. It made us subjects without calling us subjects, and it let him write laws without calling them laws. That's not the nation I fought for. That's not the nation I bled for. It's not the nation my children put their lives on the line to protect. I'm not putting up with it.
That's right.
Now, people always ask me, what can I do? I get that question from elected officials, not just people, just everyday people. I had county commissioners, 4 of them. They voted 4-0 against the shutdowns, but the letter wasn't addressed to them. It was addressed to their county judge. And their county judge said, everybody shut down, mask mandates. And I got a phone call. What can we do? I said, you're county commissioners, right? What do county commissioners do? You take care of roads, you take care of budgets, and you, what's that? You set the salaries. There's a lot of county judges out west that only make $1 a year. It's an honor to serve. Does your county judge have another job? Well, no, he doesn't. You might want to adjust your salaries to make up for that tax loss you're going to have with all those shutdowns. 2 weeks later, that county opened back up. No shutdowns, no masks. And you've heard a lot about precinct chairs in the last few months. Greg Abbott violated our Constitution, broke his oath. Our state reps violated their Constitution and broke their oaths. So I went to the county chairs. The county chairs aren't interested in protecting you or me. They don't listen. So I went to the precinct chairs, and those are regular people for the most part. Those people listen. Those people have children and jobs and friends and family. And those people voted to censure Greg Abbott. We need more of those people. And if you think of your favorite representatives right now, your very favorite ones, there's a few. My senator is Bob Hall. He's like the James Brown of state senators. The man never rests, okay? If I'm on the coast, or if I'm in Lubbock, or if I'm in East Texas, everybody knows who I'm talking about when I say his name. He is Texas's senator. And if he's not their senator, he's their adopted senator. Now, I have an adopted state rep. His name's Brian Slayton, because mine's worthless. You know what those men share in common? They've never held an office before the one they have now. They're relevant. They're new. They're rookies. They're doing an awesome job. You know who else was a rookie and never held an office before? You might remember him. His name was Trump. He did a pretty good job, didn't he? Now, earlier we were talking about national issues. He was talking about national issues, and we have a guy that's, his name's Joe Biden. He served 50 years in office. I tell everybody, he swore into office when I was 5. Look at me. That's too long. That's way too long. There's not an apple in the world that'll stay in the barrel that long without rotting. I couldn't stay in the barrel that long without rotting. That's why I'm a believer in term limits. For the first 100 years, we had citizen legislatures. You went to Congress. I went to Congress. You went to the Senate. And then when we were finished, we came back. We went back to the job that God gave us and that we were good at. And we let somebody else take a turn. And hardly anybody ever rotted. Why? They didn't have the power. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the influence. We didn't treat them like rock stars. There's no reason why I should know the Secretary of Health's name, let alone who they're married to and how many kids. Who cares? I'd like to see politics get boring again and the government go back to what it's supposed to do. But that's going to take us. That's going to take us from the precinct level up. We need to get rid of the professional politicians, the ones that stay in there for 20 years.
That's right.
Professional politicians will pick out a college while they're in high school based on a political science program. How many of us had any sort of convictions in high school? None. But they picked out this career path. And you wonder why these people are 50, 60, 70 years old and they act like school kids? They've never left. They've never been in the real world. They've never written a check. They've never received one except from us. Jefferson said the price of liberty was eternal vigilance. And we have not been very vigilant. I'm just as much to blame as anybody else. But we're noticing now, last year, if it showed us nothing else, it showed us exactly how quickly all of those liberties could disappear. And it got you here. Because you're not on the couch, you're now a political activist. But something caused that. There was one issue that caused that, and you all have, maybe you have a different one. But if you were to stand up right now and announce your name and tell people what that was, tell people the law that should have passed and didn't, tell people the law that did pass that you would have never voted for, people would give you a round of applause and vote for you. And our elected officials can't say those things. Our professional politicians work together, Democrat and Republican. They work together to keep us divided. Everybody in this room knows a Democrat, related to a Democrat, works with a Democrat, and they watch your back, and you watch theirs. You love them. They're family. These voters, Democrat and Republican, they're not natural enemies, except when the professional political class turns us against each other. And like ants in a jar, they shake it till we're ready to tear each other apart. And if race doesn't work, and gender doesn't work, and class doesn't work, and age doesn't work, they'll throw in the vaccine, they'll throw in the mask, they'll find something. And we can't let that happen. We have to stand together. We outnumber them. That little ants in the jar analogy, we outnumber them by a lot. And you got to realize one of those hands is a Republican and one of those hands is a Democrat shaking that jar. The time when you can just pick out somebody who has an R next to their name and vote for them and feel good about it, that's over. That's been over. We're just now realizing it. So I wrote that book for people that ask, what can I do? I wrote a book. And I got to tell you, it's scary because I've never written a book before. I kind of saw myself as Steve Martin in a jerk writing refund checks late into the night. But I sent it to the 5 most conservative people I knew, and they said it was good. And I trusted those people. So I put it out, and haven't had any bad reviews yet. Nobody's demanded their money back yet. I'm really happy with that. And I'm asking all of you to take that one step up, do just a little bit more. None of us can do everything, but all of us can do just a little bit more. And that's what it's going to take. Thank you very much. We have time for a few questions. Has anybody got a question? There we go. Here we go.
All right. I think it is Amendment 17, where we took away the right for the state to name who is going to be our senators and representatives in Washington. I think it's 17. U.S. Constitution. It could be 23. It's in there, one of those.
Really good focus on state issues, so. I'm a little-
What's the likelihood of ever getting that repealed so that the states are doing it again?
I would support a constitutional amendment in a heartbeat to do that. It's very difficult on purpose to get constitutional amendments, but we got rid of that prohibition thing, and there's no reason we can't put that back. The reason the founders, and the founders were brilliant, the reason the founders had a House and a Senate is that the House represented the population, and the Senate represented actually the states themselves. The states had a voice. So even if all of us thought it was a great idea to tax the oil company to the nines and get free gas, the states could get together and tell their senators to vote it down. When they got rid of that, they turned all these senators into high-paid congressmen. Not a whit worth of difference between the two of them now. They're all, lick their finger, 51%. That's all they care about, is that re-election and that next higher election, because they're career politicians.
Would that make it so that term limits would be there?
We can term limit anybody out as soon as we vote them out. And I mean, that's the founders' argument, but I am for term limits because people they tend to be lazy, and they get somebody in good and they want to keep them there, and they go bad. And if you're honored with an office, the voters give you that honor because your vote, and it's recently been reminded to all of us, your vote's paid for with blood. And to just throw it away is an insult. So it is it's incumbent on us, if you get honored with an elected position, please, after a couple of terms, 3 terms, please leave. Not just for our sake, but for your own. Because I don't want to sentence anybody to that. You get in there and you get around these people and you get used to it. And it becomes normal. And just a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And you turn into a person that you wouldn't like very much. And I don't wish that on anybody, especially people I love and that I respect. Yeah.
I want to know who the 4 are you like. You said there's 4?
I cannot remember the 4 names. Brian Slayton is one of them, and he's got 3 compatriots, but you can look it up on TexasHouse.gov. You go into regular session, you click HB3, and you can see how they voted. They can't hide that. And I'd encourage everybody to read that bill. I do remember line 7 of that bill, and what line 7 said was that this bill authorizes cooperation between all entities, public and private. It doesn't sound scary, does it? I'm not an attorney, but is cooperation illegal in the state of Texas? So I looked it up in a law dictionary. Authorized, to compel obedience. That's scary. This law compels obedience for all entities, public and private. That's you and I. And 4 Republicans voted against it. Is that the end of questions? Well, if that's it, I'll turn it back over to Andy.
Robert, thank you for coming. Like I say, that book is outstanding. I really encourage you all to read it. So it's seriously, it's not that it's something that we haven't talked about here, but the thing about it is having it all in one place. And a lot of people are still asking the question, well, you know what? We have all these Republicans running, somehow the Democrats can win. This kind of thing actually helps us kind of educate our voter base to realize that primaries are Republicans voting together. So there's the runoff. There's no way for the Democrat to win. So you have to get 50